Hi, I'm Jennifer Long, Pattern Department Manager for Riley Blake Designs, and today I'm here to share with you the tiling scene for the Autumn Love quilt designed by Lori Holt of Bee in My Bonnet. It is absolutely adorable for fall and autumn, and you can see the whole quilt beside me here. Let's get started. So as you can see, there are individual blocks in the Autumn Love quilt. The Autumn Love quilt is consisted of multiple individual blocks and then a couple of blocks that are longer than what your hoop might be able to handle. So how we incorporated that is through something called tiling scenes. This is a technique that we use that is very beginner friendly, and you just stitch out each block and then you piece it together just like you would for any kind of quilt that you would do. I have already stitched out all 9 Autumn Love center tiling scene blocks here, but I have not trimmed that yet. I wanted to do that together with you. And we're going to talk about how we trim them, how we put them together, and then how they make this gorgeous centerpiece for the Autumn Love machine embroidery quilt. All right, so Lori's gorgeous designs here we've incorporated in all of these great stitches. And you can see here, this is the top corner of the house. So she has her beautiful stitches over here for her cover stitches into the house, and you can see how there's an additional seam line here, and then but the stitching kind of comes out and it feathers away. This is what you want for our tiling scene. Before we begin, we want to remove the stabilizer on the back. So I'm going to just pull and tear away all of this extra stabilizer. And you can just carefully tear it away. You don't want to destroy any of your stitches. It is a heavy stabilizer, so it would support all of those stitches. So you'll just take your time and tear it all away. All right, once I've torn out all of the center, I'm going to do the same thing on the outside. So I'm going to pull away all of this on the outside. You can see how it's staying in between the placement stitch and the guide stitch, and we're going to try and get that, remove that as well. So you want to see if you can remove all of that stabilizer, and it's pretty easy to do. Kind of fun actually too. So you're going to get rid of all of that stabilizer. Okay, so we've removed all of the stabilizer here. I'm going to take this over to the pressing mat, and here we have the Jill Finley pressing mat down, and this is just going to help support some of our stitches. We don't want all of this gorgeous juicy detail that we have to get flattened, so we're going to put it face down and we're going to press it from the back side. And we're just going to make sure that it's nice and flat and straight and ready before we trim it. We don't want to trim this ahead of pressing it. So just take your time and press all of those stitches out. And we're going to bring it back here. All right, so now how you trim it is we do not need to actually measure this yet. You are going to trim it on this guide line, this trim stitch that we have here. So I'm going to walk you through just how to do that. You're going to take your ruler and line it up right alongside of it. And this is your seam allowance anyways, so if it's just a little bit over, it's all right. But we're going to trim that away. And we're going to trim each of these sides away. Keep rotating them. It's matching thread, so it's a little hard to see, but just make sure that you're leaving enough there to have your seam allowance. And one more, and we're going to trim that away. So if you can zoom in on here, you can see that there's still a layer of stitches all the way around, and that's our guide stitch, and we're going to keep that in there so we know exactly where to stitch this out. But now we have one piece that's completely ready to be tiled. Looks like this, and I'm going to put it back up here on the design board. And I'm going to take the second one and repeat that same process again. So here I've already torn off some of the stabilizer. I'm going to continue here and tear off this back of the stabilizer. Okay, so once you've turned that stabilizer off, we're going to bring it back over to our pressing mat, and we're going to put it face down again and do the same thing and press that. All right, so it's going to be nice and flat, and then we're going to do the same thing again and follow that guide stitch line there, and we're going to trim. You'll notice that some of the pieces are not finished and covered, and that is completely okay and actually what we want. We don't want our seams to have tons of bulk in it, and so if this is going to be inside the seam allowance, then we don't want it to be have a cover stitch on it. Good. So trim on that outer stitch line all the way around. All right, so once you've cut and trimmed both pieces, we're going to line them up together just like this. We're going to check that we have the correct orientation to line them all up, and we're going to continue that same process through all of the pieces for the tiling scene, for this tiling scene and every tiling scene. But for time's sake, we are going to go ahead and move on to the next step and sew these two pieces together. So you're going to use your domestic sewing machine for this piece, and we're going to take them here and we're going to line them up. Now you're going to think, oh, these aren't quite lined up, which is exactly how we want them to be, because when you see where this guideline is coming here and this guideline is coming here is exactly how we want it to be. So it's a little bit, it's just like piecing angled pieces together, like HSTs. So we're going to flip this over, and I'm going to show you just a fun little technique to get perfect points all the time. So if you want to come in really close, this is one that actually my grandmother taught me, and I'm happy to share it here. So you put this pin in right at the point that you want it to match, and I'm putting it right at that guide stitch and right at the top of that seam allowance. Then I'm going to put it through exactly where it's going to match here again, and I'm going to hold that pin. That pin I want to stay straight up and down completely. I'm going to take a second one, and I want to mention that these are Lori Holt's pretty pins that I adore. I can never have enough of them. They're the right size, and I just love them so much. The second pin that I put in there is like my stability pin, and it holds this still. Sometimes when you put a pin in there and then you pull it over, it can actually pull your stitch one stitch over, and you know, when you're working so hard and you're putting this all together, you want it to have it as perfect as you can. So keeping that one standing up nice and tall, and that one beside it really does help. I'm going to do the exact same thing for the next corner that I'm going to match. I'm going to put another pin in there and then match it right underneath and have it stand up nice and straight and tall, and put its stability pin right beside it. Now you're going to do this for however many points there are to match. Whenever you're pinning any of these points together, you want to make sure that each single point will be pinned together so that each pin is actually matching. That's the beauty of the tiling scene and the magic of the tiling scene that happens when you have all of those points matching. So you do want to make sure that you're putting a pin in everywhere. If there's areas that don't have pins, like let's say this bottom one here has no points to match, you still want to make sure that you're pinning enough so that it doesn't pull or torque in any way. So coming back to this one that we're working on, I just have these 2 points to match, but I want to make sure that everything is even and it's not going to shift back and forth. So I'm going to do the same thing over here in the corner and make sure I follow my guide stitch. And I'm going to put a pin in there, and just to keep it nice and consistent, I'm going to keep it going over. And then you could do 1 or 2 here. I'm going to just do 1 more at the bottom and match it right in the bottom corner. Excellent. Good. And there we have it. Let's take it over to the sewing machine and let's sew that seam down. All right, so I have my 1/4 inch foot here on my sewing machine. And of course, we do not want to sew through any pins. And you're probably wondering what I'm going to do with these pins that are standing straight up and down, just like this. So I'm going to hold them, and before I get there, I'm going to take them out. But now it's like a guide. It's like exactly where I'm pointing my needle to hit and to come. So here I go. I'm going to take that first one out so I can get in and underneath it. And I'm going to lower that foot down. Now I want to be just a smidge inside of that guideline so that I don't have the guideline showing. If the guideline does end up showing, you can always seam rip it and pull it out, but we're aiming for it to be hidden inside the seam allowance. All right, I'm going to pull my pin out before I go, and I'm just going to take my time and go really slow through this. I'm standing my next one up straight and tall, so I know exactly where I'm trying to go. And when I get there, I'm just going to pause for a second, take it out, and keep heading towards that. Good. And then the second one again. And pull the pins out. We never want to sew over our pins. Good. And then heading right towards the end. This is not a step that you want to necessarily rush. So take your time, enjoy all your beautiful work that you've done. And great, then you will reap the rewards. All right, so I'm going to come over here and open it up and have the big reveal. Look at this excellent, excellent match. Isn't that fantastic? So another tip and trick, just to have it match even better than this, is to open up that seam at the back. So there is some bulk in happening here, and if you open up that seam at the back, we'll press it as well, then it will lie even more flat. If you pull it over, then sometimes it can kind of shift and have one stitch over. So let's take it back over, make sure we're always pressing this with the embroidery side down on the pressing mat, and I'm going to press it open so we can just enjoy this fun and beauty. Oh, this is so fun. This is the reward here, all of the work. Good. Excellent. Look, and there you have it. So this is how you do a tiling seam in the Autumn Love quilt or in any machine embroidery through Riley Blake Designs projects. The Autumn Love quilt is designed by Lori Holt from Bee in My Bonnet, and it features all of these beautiful blocks along with this new technique called tiling. And join us here at Riley Blake for more tutorials and fun for machine embroidery. Thank you so much for being here. Until next time.